Hello everyone. In this video, we're going to go over the solutions to the logical puzzle activity for this week in Math CEO. This logical puzzle is pretty complicated. The clues are pretty detailed. There's a lot of different things to keep track of. So I'm going to give you a sort of sense as to how I approached it. But honestly, before you watch what I do with some of these clues, I recommend that you try it yourself. Just take 20 minutes and sit down and see if you can figure this puzzle out. And pay attention to how you're recording information, because that can be really useful for when you're teaching it to your students. But without further ado, let's maybe break some of these down. I'm going to focus on these 4 clues that I've kind of put a little pink star next to. Let's just go one by one. So clue A says, programmer says, I haven't been to Asia nor Europe yet. Okay, so I'm going to record my clues both in this table that I have here and maybe as some logical inferences. So I know that programmer, my programmer here, my programmer column, hasn't been to Asia nor Europe. So that means that I know the programmer could not have come from South Korea, nor India, nor Germany. And those are the countries from Asia or Europe. Okay. And then Kevin says, I am from Asia. You should visit. I learned knitting there and it became my favorite hobby. Okay, there's a lot of information there. So this is for clue A. So we know that Kevin came from Asia. So Kevin, it goes with either South Korea or India. Okay, that's good information right there. Kevin says, I learned knitting there and it became my favorite hobby. Oh, that's great. We know right off the bat that Kevin likes knitting. Okay, so actually we can just go in here and we can check that off. So if Kevin likes knitting, that means that no one else has taken knitting as a hobby. And I can also X out the other options for Kevin's hobby. So already we're looking pretty good here. There is another hidden piece of information in this clue. Kevin is talking to the programmer. That means that Kevin could not be the programmer. So off the bat, I know that Kevin can't be the programmer. Okay. And so you can see here, I'm using 2 different ways to sort of record my clues. So that's clue A. Let's look at clue B. So clue B says, Alan says, I met the mathematician yesterday. Did you? Person from Nigeria. I met the mathematician 2 days ago for the first time, together with a man called Kevin. Okay, again, a lot of information here. Number 1, Alan says I met the mathematician. That means Alan is not the mathematician, so I'll X that out. The person from Nigeria says they also met the mathematician. That means that whoever came from Nigeria is not a mathematician either. So that would correspond to mathematician, Nigeria, that's this cell right here. So I know that that one cannot be correct. And we also know that the person from Nigeria met Kevin, which means that Kevin is not from Nigeria. And of course, Alan is talking to them, so neither is Alan. So maybe I'll record that. I'll say, Alan is not from Nigeria, and neither is Kevin. Okay. Now let's look at clue clue I. So clue I, someone, we don't know who, says, I met a teacher from India and someone else from South Korea. Their names were Kevin and Alan, but I don't remember which was from which country. Okay, so we know that whoever is the teacher came from India. So let's record that. So teacher, we know that this is the same as being from India. Okay. And someone else from South Korea. And we know that, okay, these 2 people were Kevin and Alan. So we know that Kevin and Alan were either from India or South Korea. And we don't know who is who or which is which. But we know that those 2 came from those 2 countries. Okay. And actually, I could have recorded my teacher from India clue here as a check mark there, so we know that we can X out the rest of those rows and columns. Perfect. And let's look at clue F. So clue F, Sandra says, so what do you do when you stay at home? Person from South Korea, many things. My hobby is yoga, so a lot of that. Yeah, there's a lot to unpack here. First of all, it's implied that the person that Sandra is talking to is the stay-at-home person. So, of course, we know that Sandra is not going to be stay-at-home. But there's a lot of inferences here that we can pull from here. So we know that staying home is tied to South Korea, and it's also tied to yoga. And now I think we can combine some of the clues that we've investigated and we can make some serious progress here. So we know that whoever is from South Korea likes yoga, from this clue here. We also know that Kevin and Alan came from India and South Korea, but we don't know which is which. But we do know that Kevin likes knitting. Okay, so if Kevin likes knitting, that means he could not have liked yoga, which means that Kevin is not from South Korea. So the only option is that Kevin's from India. Okay, so we can record that here. So we know that Kevin is from India, and that's good. We should put that in our final table when we do that. And then we also know that that means that Alan is from South Korea. So I can write that down here too. Just like that. Oops. And since Alan's from South Korea, we know that Alan likes yoga. So I can come here and do that. And so I know that no one else gets to pick yoga. And whoever did yoga was a stay-at-home. So I know that Alan stays home, and I've made some pretty good progress already. This is looking pretty good. There's another clue. Okay, since Kevin is from India, and whoever's from India is the teacher, we also have Kevin's occupation. So we know that Kevin has to be the teacher. Whew. Okay, so actually I think we've squared Kevin and Alan away. We know what their occupation was, then we know their hobby, and we know where they came from. So we've filled out the Kevin and Alan rows in our like final table of answers totally and completely just from these 4 clues. And we've made some progress on some of the other ones as well. So I recommend that you pause the video and go through the other clues and see if you can finish the puzzle from here. Okay, I hope you got a chance to do that. Let me show you the final answer. It looks like this. So we were correct that Alan is stay-at-home, does yoga, and is from South Korea. Kevin is the teacher, he does knitting, and is from India. And then the other 3 come from the other clues. Now, how do you scaffold this activity is probably one of the hardest questions. So when you're dealing with giving this to students, I really recommend model how to record this information. And model it how you would do it, and model a few different ways to do it if they haven't started getting the gist of it already. That's going to be the hardest part, is getting people sort of started. But once you get some traction, once you have some of them filled out, and you start recording the clues, then things start to click and slot into place. And it's actually quite satisfying. But I do recommend the best way to prepare for doing this activity with your students is to try it yourself on your own first, because that'll tell you a lot about how you approach it and about some of the quirks of this particular puzzle.